It's a hammer shock right here. It's a hammer shock. Um, I was able to find two of my oldest surnames that are on paper, Times and Early, um, on the census records for Indian. And it's interesting, right? It's interesting. Early, obviously, Choctaw, Seminole, Creek, and there were some other ones. I'm not sure if it was Miami. I don't think it was Miami. Could have been, but definitely Seminole. Um, in times, Choctaw, Cherokee, Chickasaw, but they were freemen. And I have a screenshot from an old disc that I have. I used to share some disc around my community to people who live in the nearby. I used to have files on there where people can study, and I would just share them out. I would leave them at the mailboxes so people can pick them up. But I found that times, I found that, my second great grandmother, she was on one of the rolls, her and her husband. My second great grandfather, Henry, I found them on there as Choctaw. So that's interesting, right? It's interesting, right? You can kind of go through some of the old records and you find things like I even found um the early, right? They were on the Wyandotte. Okay, the Wyandotte, that's a community in Michigan and throughout the Midwest. It's basically a community. So the Wyandotte, if you go to these communities now, you will look at them and they look very mixed. They look very interracialized, um, intermarried. They look very whitewashed. They don't look like you know pre-revolution. So you look at these communities now, and it's like you have to find your records where you have your surnames on them, and you have to trace back and see who's who. Because like me personally, I don't think searching your surname on a census is complete, especially like an Indian roll. I don't think it's complete because it's too like when you're trying to find out who your people are, right? And you're searching, you're doing that. Some of the stuff is like what are you looking for? Are you just looking for it to say racial classification, Indian or Negro? Are you looking for that? Because like sometimes it don't even say that. You know what I mean? It don't even say that. So it's like, how do you know if those are truly your people outside of just them having your last name? That's why I'm a proponent of DNA. We can do science now that we couldn't do before. We can do science now. Why not go back and see like, okay, who are these people? Who are those people? Let's do this type of scientific test and let's see if these are the same people. You can do that on Ancestry now. And that's the crazy part, right? Ancestry, it doesn't allow you to go back on those since it don't pop up like they ain't got it where like you can just find out who people are when they just pop up on, you know, like you'll have cousins who pop up, right? But they'll pop up with their last names, but you can't find like an ancestor that way. You know what I mean? You can't find like they're not going back testing the people who are in the graves to see who like how you related to them. They not doing that yet, and I think eventually they'll do it. They're just slow poking. You know what I mean? They just slow poking right now. Um, because I tell you, if they allow people to find out who they truly are, a lot of these institutions won't even be needed. A lot of because like right now, right, the fight in the Native American community is to try to have black people not find out who they are. That's the fight right now that they're going through. They don't want people to find out. Like I just went on the BIA website, right, the Bureau of Indian Affairs. I just went on there and requested a petition. I mailed my documents off. I'm a living person right now of the Miami, Illinois. I'm the living person of that those people right now. I'm alive. So when they get my papers, what they're probably going to do is post it on a website, and they're probably going to say this person needs to do this, he needs to do that, because they're going to say it's insufficient or something like that. Because I gave them the DNA. I didn't give them surnames. Because I think the Miami, Illinois were one of the people who didn't go by surnames. You know what I mean? Like they had a different way of acknowledging who people were. You know what I mean? So to me, like, it's a great thing when you can find out who your people were and how they were classified. Like right now, Choctaw Times, that's freedmen. That's African descent. And Choctaw pops up on my DNA. That's the crazy part. It pops up on my DNA and over a hit of a 100%. That's where it pops up on my DNA. Maybe like 99%. I want to say 99 or 98% it pops up. So to me, like I sent my stuff off. I'm like, we gotta be serious about this. Like we gotta be very serious about making sure that we're acknowledged, we're recognized. So we can get funding. You know what I mean? Like so we can get funded for things that we want to do. You know. And I feel like if there was a process where you can go back to Africa and reclaim who you are, I would say do that too. You know, it just doesn't stop with the Indian bureaus. It doesn't stop with that. Like, go back to Africa and claim. Because we trying to reconnect bloodlines. We trying to reconnect people with people. You know, so we can get funding. And the first thing you do when you get funding, what you can do, right? You can start clearing out lands, clearing out abandoned buildings. You know, messing with the soil. Um, Fixing mangroves, doing stuff like that, creating lakes. You know what I'm saying? Like we could do stuff like that. Like we have engineers, we have architects, like all these black institutions that we have in the South. Like why we can't redo the North? Like why we can't redo the North? Because I'm telling you, if other groups seeing us that we not working, that we not on top of our stuff, they gonna come in and try to do the hanky jank. They gonna come in and try to do the hanky jank. They gonna come in, start messing with stuff, doing stuff their way, and it's gonna create a big war. That's what they're trying to do right now. Like the guy from Colombia, the president, he had to come out and say, "Oh, black people been over here thousands of years. The dark skinned people, they've been here thousands of years." You see what I'm saying? Because everybody who looks like them, right, they don't want us to know that we're from here. This is why when you go to the LoRa websites or you go to the .gov websites, you got to do all this typing, you got to do all this back searching, all this scrolling, just to find your name on a census record. And then you find out that this person is a distant cousin or a distant relative. It's not even your great grandfather, your great grandmother. It's not even them. It's somebody distant to you who has your last name. Which again, that's why I see like last names. We really don't need last names. The search for things, like it's cool. Like right now, I just did a simple Chat GPT search. I have a screenshot of this from like the actual census roll, not this, but the actual census roll of the time my Times family being Choctaw, but it didn't say they were freemen. I don't think I have that on the disc from the actual census roll. I can't find that screenshot or that website nowhere else. I can't find it no more. But this is how you show you. This is how they wipe the internet of things, so you can't do your study. This is how they do those things, right? So I found Times here, Choctaw, Chickasaw. Okay, I also found Seminole somewhere. Where I think the early. But okay, Wyan Dot. You see what I'm saying? So this is what's up. So when you got early on Freeman, that's African descent. You automatically know those are your people, because it's Freeman. You automatically know those are your people. When you can find a Freeman and they have your last name, you already know your people were those people. Now, I don't really know too much about the freedman status. I got to do a little bit more searching on that, like to find out what that exactly is. Because to not be considered by blood, freeman, I don't really know what that means. Um, yeah, I don't really know what that means, but I hear about it in the news a lot, but I still don't know exactly like what's the history behind that as it relates to not being blood. So I got to find out a little bit more about that. So this is just stuff that I've been searching out, like this all I've been searching. Um, so my people are Wyandotte. Um, from I guess the last census that they found. So they only found them on like the Seminole, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Wyandotte, Cherokee, Creek. Those the main ones. So those the main ones. And the Wyandotte and the Miami are very close to one another. So they're very close to one another. So Wyandotte, that's the Michigan Confederacy, Indiana, Illinois, basically Ojibwe. Ojibwe, basically. So, yeah, it's like, find out who your people are, man. Like, find out who they are. So, when your kids get young adults to become young adults and they find out who they are, it's not confusing. You know what I'm saying? It's not confusing. You know, because, like, really, realistically, right? I would say we should go back to some of these names, or create newer versions of the names, create new land maps where the people were, because we extend it, given over time we expand. Um, find out who we are. You know what I mean? What's the big deal? What's the big deal? But I'm telling you right now, there's a person, right? I think her name is Des Wrong. She's really going hard to try to deter people from finding out who they are. She's calling them pretendians. Like, she doesn't want people to know who they are at all. You know, she's going very far. It's like she's going to the point where it's like, it's just obvious, right? She basically, in all simple terms, she don't want black Americans to know who they really truly are. She doesn't want them to know this. And that's not a slight at her. It's just, what I understand, you know. She say cold terms, like she'll call them like the faux people. Like, she call us the faux people. Like, they don't want us to know who we are. and she says she's Paiute. So I would not be surprised if there was black people in that particular tribe, Paiute. Um, because you can kind of look at people and kind of look at like, okay, how would this person look if they had nappy hair and they were darker? And you can kind of find out like, oh, these are those people, these are those people. And you find out, oh, they're living in, you know, Gary, Indiana, or they're living in Chicago. You know what I'm saying? Like you find out that people left some of the areas that they were in and they went to areas where there was like more um, you know, acceptableness, if you will, like where they kind of knew people. Um, so like, yeah, check out like if you're on TikTok, check her out. Her name is Desrong, THASWRONG. She might block you. She might block you if you come in there saying that you black and you Indian. She might block you because she really don't want people to know, you know what I'm saying? She really don't want people to know that cuz like they always try to say that our history starts off as slaves in America, and it's like history don't support that fact, you know? And I'm simple with it, right? I just be like, if history started off with us it's being slaves, right? Why is it that wherever part of America you go, whether it's north, central, or south, all these people speak a different version of Latin? And the people who they say was kicking our butt the most, they're scattered, but they don't have great numbers. They're scattered around us. And a lot of them be tourists or they have government jobs. Um, but they don't speak any of those languages. So it's like how did the black people in um, Brazil learn how to speak that version of Latin? Nicaragua, Suriname, how did they learn to speak all these languages that they speak? Why is it that Jamaican people are vastly different than the people in Haiti and they're so close to each other? Why they're so different than each other? And like how did you manage to get all these people on the side of this planet, right? As slaves. And they're able to do what they're doing today, right? You haven't conquered them to the sense where their numbers are so down. You know what I'm saying? Like, of course, like some of our bloodlines have been uh, gone in a sense, like wiped away because we haven't reproduced. But a lot of that is just like community issues. It has nothing to do with integrations so much that they've come here and conquered us. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the case at all. Um, but yeah, I see it simple. I see it simple, really. I see it simple. I see it simple. Like even when I look at my family, right? I be like, how did they get here? How did they get there? Like I be looking at these small towns, like my Times family, right? My Times side of the family. They're from Tallahatchie, Mississippi. And I think that's right next to a place called I don't know. I forgot what that. I don't know if it's India or Brazil, but it's like a little town right there. But they from a place called Tallahatchie, Mississippi, and then my other side of the family, they're from another part called Coahoma, Coahoma, Mississippi, and these are just like rural lands. Like you really can't get to these places. You wouldn't want to go to these places if you just, you know, were just visiting America. Like you wouldn't know to go to these places. And it's nothing in these places. It's just farmland. You see what I'm saying? It's just farmland. So it's like, how did they get to these places that they were in? And then they just, they up and leave one day and go to Chicago. So it's like, I don't know, man. People really don't want black people to know who they are. That's the crazy part. Like, because it's like, if everything stops overnight, right? When if everybody finds out who they are, right? Everything stops overnight. Imagine how much money these businesses and corporations will lose. Everybody speaking their own language, right? Which means no one has to deal with xenophobia anymore, right? No one has to deal with encumbrance. You know what I'm saying? Like, not everybody doing their own thing. So now we don't have to like deal with other people. You speaking your own language. Now you're wearing your own clothes. Now you have an identity. So now they just can't put things on you like bills. Because now you have a hairdresser. That signifies something, right? You have a language that signifies something, right? So now you're writing in a different language. So now they can't understand what you're saying. They're losing money. They're losing money now. So this is what I love, man. Like, and then the cops, right? The police. You don't have to worry about them because they can't come on your land now because you're federally recognized. They can't come on your land now. This means you know everybody who comes on your land and you know everybody who's serving you in a public capacity. Think about it. Great peace, Yakoki.